Okay, going to be doing water pumps, water pump, thermostat, hoses, belts, idlers, and tensioner. Just do all the basic stuff that has to be done to do maintenance to an E61, a 2006 530 Xi Touring. It's got 130,000 miles on it, as far as I know, never been done, so a lot of stuff to do, getting it ready to do a big road trip, so I've heard it's hard. We'll figure it out together. Okay, first I'm going to remove this panel for access. There are just a boatload of hex Torx fittings, about 10 bolts in strategic locations. Pull those out, the whole panel will be loose. Keep in mind that the will still be connected to the hood release cable, so you'll have to set it aside or remove the latches from the panel, which just doesn't seem to be worth it. Okay, next is this this panel here. Comes off with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 screws, and also unclip this this hose that runs along the top. Okay, then you unclip the electrical connection and just pull the fan out of the way to give yourself the access you need to all the good stuff underneath. And remember to flip out the little triangular catch down here. This little guy has to be flipped out of the way so that it'll clear the cross member as it comes out, and then the fan will be removed. And this being BMW, there's always a surprise or two. There's a hose that's actually clipped into the lower part of the bracket on the fan. It just needs to be pulled out of these pinch clips, and that should get the radiator fans out of the car without further complications. And this would be a good time to make some notes, take some photos of the hoses, the belts. I'm doing them all, so it's probably easier to do them all anyway, just to get them out of the way. But it's all part of the same maintenance today, so I'll take some still photos of all these hoses, because I think I've got them all ready to replace. So it'll look better when I'm done. If you're doing idlers and pulleys, tensioners, this cap comes off of this just idler pulley, and it's held on with a bolt. The tensioner pulley is held on with a replaceable inside upside down Torx bolt that comes out and gets replaced with a new one, which probably came with your new tensioner. So I'm going to go ahead and swap those out since they're not in the way of anything else I'll be doing. Okay, now I'm going to just drain the radiator by releasing the one of the lower hoses here. That should get it done. There's a catch right here that has to be popped up. It's a quick release style that you'll see a lot of them on this on these cars. Right there in the center, that has to pop up to release the hose. I'm going to do that. I'm going to need 2 hands though. The hose is the quick release is up. Just a matter of pulling it off to get it draining and to get your phone soaked while you're at it. That's no extra charge. So you will have to release something up top. The drain, the bleeding valve will let some air in, because otherwise it's going to take forever to drain. So I just actually got it done. I was thinking of my E46. This is the easy way to do it on the E60, 61, is take off the radiator cap and hope it doesn't overflow. I've got a 6-quart pan. I think it's probably got more than that in it. So maybe not. Okay, now it's time to get it up on stands, because I'm done working up on top, and it'll be easier from this point on to have it up in the air a little bit, so I'll gently lower it onto the stands. Yeah, that's normal. Okay, I dropped the power steering line down to get it a little bit out of the way. This bracket could come off. There's a bolt back up in here where you really can't see it. That could do it. I don't think that'll be necessary. Unplugging the big power clip is pretty simple. This one's a little fiddlier, this little one that goes to the thermostat. The catch is on the back side here, where it's really hard to see. I'm going to need two hands to get this thing out, in all likelihood, unless I can just pry it out this way. Because the connector is part of the new thermostat, so scratching it up doesn't matter at all. If you needed to get this line out of the way, it's held in with one bolt that presumably gives it a ground. I'm going to try to work around it for now. I don't think it's in my way. Next, I'm going to try to get the hoses removed. These two don't look too bad. There's the ones that exit the rear are the difficult ones, and I'll do my best to describe how that works. Okay, this one is now loose. Be careful when you pull it out because it will get antifreeze all over the place. There's going to be antifreeze trapped in a lot of these hoses. I'm going to go ahead and pull the rest of this hose off just because I can and because I'm replacing it. But be prepared, and don't do this on a really cold day or it'll get really miserable. Yes, it's still draining. I just popped the quick release on this this hose right here. That's the next one. It's above the one you just took off, and so that one gets wrestled off next. Hopefully it won't be too hard. And luckily there's not that much fluid in it. We're still draining. But my next task is going to be to try to get a little bit of wiggle room by getting the water pump and thermostat loose. I'll probably leave them bolted together. These two bolts come out very easily. There's a third one up on top here that's I can see. I think I can get to it. But if I have trouble, I'm going to have to remove these two, like 10s, I think, to get the thermostat moved up just enough where I can squeeze an extension through this gap to get to that third inside out Torx bolt like that one. On the side, you may want to check in between your AC condenser and your radiator. Mine is over half full of leaves and debris. I had no idea. Car ran nice and cool through the Arizona summer, meaning that the cooling system is apparently over-designed. I'm going to pause and get the vacuum and see if I can pull that out of there without causing any major problems. The radiator up a little bit. The cooler unit that's bolted to it is interfered with by a hose that isn't going anywhere, but I can get this end up, and if you can see, upside down probably, I jammed a socket in there just to keep it up off the bottom, so I can now get at least to the bottom of this, and with any luck I'll be able to blow it out with compressed air out the bottom. It's going to make a heck of a mess. Compressed air is going to take a while, but it's definitely not going to move all this material. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm using a stick. I'm using a piece of 1/2-inch plank to just push the debris to the bottom. Now if you can see, it's going to make it accessible to the crack I've created in the bottom by wiggling the radiator up. At the very least, it is definitely moving a lot of debris out from between the two, so cooling will improve even if I can't get all of this stuff out of here. This is unbelievable. Alrighty then. Expected, I ended up loosening this up to gain access to that last bolt. So the thermostat is now loose. The bolt is now going to be easily enough accessible with a long extension back up through this gap, using a couple wobbles to make it easier. Being a relative term, doing it one-handed. I'm going to have to use two hands to do this. However, now by moving everything around, I can actually see the last bolt, the last clamp, hose clamp screw right through there under the thermostat beside the water pump, and luckily it's indexed so it's pointing straight back at me. It's a straight shot, 6mm. Should be able to get that one off with relative ease. The last hose to get off, I've pushed the thermostat up, being held with a screwdriver right now. That hose is, the clamp you can see is entirely off. That was actually fairly easy. I just now need to break the seal on that, and to do that I think I'm going to use a big flat blade screwdriver just to pry it loose and break the seal, and at that point I do believe I'll be able to get this whole unit out. That's all there is to that. It's out. Now I just have to reverse the process. Replace a bunch of hoses prior to that, which is what I'm going to work on now that the cooling system is well and truly done dripping for a while, it seems. The difficulty of getting to that clamp whenever this whole assembly is in the car, I'm thinking it's probably easier to clamp the new hose to the assembly and then just slide the new hose up into place. The path up to the Mickey Mouse ear connection up top isn't really that difficult, so I think I can get it slid through and just not have to deal with that clamp at all, leaving me just this clamp, which as I showed before, if it's indexed properly, isn't that hard to get to. Leaving the two in the front, which are relatively a piece of cake. So wish me luck. After some serious wriggling, I managed to get the pump slid onto the big hose that does have the last remaining clamp, and I'm going to be able to, I don't know if you can see it, I'm moving it with my fingers. I'm going to have to hold it with one hand while I gingerly tighten it with the other until it's tight enough to start taking some torque. It's definitely going to be about a three-handed process, so definitely not going to be able to do it with the camera on. But I hope you can see the clamp in there. It's just past the two bolts, the two bolt holes on the thermostat. It's right behind it. You can see it right there, right above the that kind of whitish bracket in the background. So it's tricky to get to, but not nearly impossible. And sliding the Mickey Mouse hose up from the bottom was definitely the way to do it. It ended up being really pretty easy, and that would have been the hardest one to get on. So I just have to get this one, and I'll be close. Okay, and there's the clamp on. You can kind of sort of see the hose, the clamp. I've got it indexed so that getting it out next time won't be too difficult. The only difficulty was holding it all in place long enough to get it tight enough to be able to put a little torque on it. Well, that was a little fiddly, but once I got it, it was just tighten it down. So now the only thing left is the two quick release hoses, which shouldn't be very difficult at all. In fact, I can go ahead and slide this one on. If the clip hadn't popped in, I could, and I'll get those done. Step will be to put in the new bolts that came with the pump, and basically just wiggle the pump back into position. And once that's done, I will bolt the thermostat back to the pump, and with the two 10mm bolts that came out, and I can only do that afterwards though, because to get access to the top bolt I'm going to need to leave the thermostat loose. So here goes nothing. Do not connect the big hose prior to doing the third bolt. It really is much easier if it's out of the way. You can see the access is much better. I can come in from the side with a wobble socket and my outside Torx, inside-out Torx, and get to it fairly easy. So that's what I'm going to do. It ended up being a little tougher than I thought. Getting it started was just very difficult. The angle was bad on the approach of the tool. I ended up removing the bottom 2 bolts that I had previously put in because it just seemed to be easier if I had a little more movement of the pump itself. I was able to work around the thermostat. It's loose enough that it would move out of the way. Basically, just get the socket on the bolt, give it some, try to torque it so that it's going as straight in as you can possibly get it. Put some turns on it and hope it catches, which it eventually did, but I'd be embarrassed to tell you how long it took. And then it's just a matter of putting everything back where it belongs. Went ahead and didn't document that since the hard part was way behind us. Just had to slide in the radiator fans. Remember that the clip has to be turned to the position to get past everything. It's a little fiddly to get back in. You need to make sure that the transmission cooler, the oil cooler down there is a little bit loose. Wiggle it if you have to, and the fan will probably fall into place. There's also a locking tab on the other side that has to go into place. Don't forget to plug everything back in, and then there's plenty of videos out there about how to burp this system and get the air out of it. So I won't be doing that on video, but good luck with your water pump and thermostat replacement. It's a little fiddly.